Doug, what does globalist mean? Is it similar to neoliberal? I mean, we hear the term a lot, but I'm not quite sure what actually is meant by that.
I think that's an excellent question because globalism started out as something different from what we are referring to right now. People saw globalism, the idea that you would have uninterrupted commerce across borders, the passage of information back and forth across borders would produce a good thing. Over time, we discovered that the World Bank, which is also one of our instruments, was dictating to people in Nicaragua and in Bhutan and parts of India what crops they would grow. We were dictating to people whether or not they would drill for natural gas or oil or coal. And then we set out with this massive green energy business. So the globalism that started out as effectively a potentially good thing rapidly transformed into something bad. And then, of course, we watched our manufacturing base leave the country. And that started in the 80s, by the way, under Reagan, and it just accelerated through the 90s. And we said, well, this is globalism. But that became a very hard pill to swallow for someone in upstate New York that used to manufacture something in a factory in Rochester who now has no job. Again, this was the debate in 2016 when Trump ran for office, because he realized that and he said, I'm going to repatriate the industries. He had some success, but not enough. There were too many people that were profiting then and still profit now from this disaster. So that's part of it. This war. For which nobody voted. I mean, when's the last time somebody asked the United States, let's have a plebiscite? How many people here think we should, potentially go to war in Eastern Europe against the Russians on behalf of Ukraine? No one's being asked. Same things happen in Europe, and the Germans are saying, wait a minute, we didn't sign up for this. And that's why I think NATO and the EU, for example, these institutions are in very great danger of fragmenting and falling apart. And of course, remember, the globalists said those were the institutions that we were, quote unquote, defending.
So let me ask you about a major infrastructure project that just got sabotaged, and that is Nord Stream, these two pipelines connecting Russian gas to Germany and the rest of Europe. Now, they were already idle because Nord Stream 2 was shut down by Germany under US pressure right before Russia invaded in February. And Nord Stream 1 was shut down by Russia recently in response to Western sanctions. But now the pipeline is sabotaged, at least for a long while, with these explosions. Both Russia and the US have accused the other of responsibility. What we do know is that the US has been trying to kill Nord Stream for a very long time. Why has this been such a top priority for the US to shut down this pipeline?
Do you have any easy questions you want to ask first before we go?
What's your favorite color? What's your favorite meal? What's your favorite snack?
My favorite color is red. Anyhow.
Me too.
What should we do? We need to step back and understand larger strategic interests, at least interests that may or may not be real for the American people, but are being driven in Washington by interests. The largest, most powerful scientific industrial state in terms of output, production, growth, all of those matters by any measure in Europe and in much of the world, frankly, certainly it's in the top 3 or 4, is Germany. Historically, there has been peace in Europe and cooperation whenever Moscow and Berlin have cooperated. And that goes back over 300 years. And I think the Anglo-Saxon powers, Great Britain, primarily the British Empire, and then the United States, and now both Washington and London, have decided that whatever happens in the future, that level of cooperation and collaboration should never happen again. And so there is this underlying notion, not just that the Germans were benefiting from cheap natural gas in their manufacturing and industrial facilities, because they were. Right now, the German chemical industry, which is a leader in the world, optics, leader in the world, some of your more advanced medicines, leaders in the world. We haven't even gotten into steel and other areas of technology and engineering that the Germans lead in. All of those things are shutting down. Tens of thousands of Germans are out of work. So in addition to being unable to heat your home, you're no longer able to make a living, and the economy itself is being destroyed. Now, when this became clear to even someone as disappointing and unimaginative as Olaf Scholz, the accountant who became prime minister, he decided that it was time for secret talks with Moscow to find a way out of this, because he recognized that Germany was in serious, serious trouble economically and, most important, socially. Go back to what I was discussing earlier. You know, all the problems in a society that are suppressed and held in check by various forces suddenly come to the surface when the state turns out to be feckless and incapable. That's happening in Germany. So they're talking about social unrest on a scale no one has seen since 1929, 30, and 31. Unsurprisingly, we found out about these talks. And there is a theory, and I cannot prove it, and I have no facts to support it other than my knowledge of these talks and interests, that we decided to act, whether we did it or the United Kingdom's Royal Navy did it, or the Poles did it with assistance from the Royal Navy or from us. I have no idea. But suddenly we had this detonation and put this pipeline out of business, which essentially foreclosed German options and said, whether you like it or not, Germany, you are a vassal state of the greater American empire. You will do as you are told. You will stand fast and hold the line as we pursue this fight with Russia. Now, here's a piece of news I just received, and I don't know if this is right or not, but I received a tweet from Germany this morning indicating that someone in the German government, I don't know who it was, has said that the Nord Stream pipeline that was damaged can be repaired. And if that's true, I'm sure the Danes, the Germans, Dutch, and others will all be interested in repairing it. The other little piece of information that Americans are not aware of is that very suddenly, within 24 hours of the destruction of Nord Stream 2, you had in Poland a pipeline that had been built between Norway and Poland to carry natural gas suddenly begin to operate and provide, by the way, much more expensive natural gas than the Russians to the Poles. And at the same time, the Poles, out of the blue, decided that they want trillions of dollars of reparations from the Germans. And this is decades after these issues were settled by Germany in the 1960s and 70s with all of the states that were injured by the German military during World War II. So it's very odd to see this strange convergence of various activities right in the aftermath of this Nord Stream 2 destruction. In any case, it's a disaster for Germany. It's a disaster for Central Europe. And this disaster is having an impact elsewhere. Things are very bad in the United Kingdom. And the Norwegians have already told the British that if they're short energy this winter, that Norway may not be able to help them, because Norway has its own needs, as well as its paying customers elsewhere. What we're finding is that all of the European states that have lived together in relative peace and harmony for 50, 60, 70 years, they're not so harmonious. And they are out for themselves.